What is going on, everybody? Shane Sams here. Welcome back to the Great Men Podcast. Got a great conversation, one I've been wanting to have here for a long time with a good buddy of mine. You know, a lot of men build something. They build a business, they build a reputation, a family, a life. And, you know, from the outside in, the world says you're winning, but internally, there's pressure, there's a cost to being a founder and adopting that identity that you're wrapped up in. And I've got a guy on here who has worked with a lot of men in this position. His name is Eric Beck. He is the founder of Founders Fire, former leader at eMyth. He has spent years, decades, they say, working with entrepreneurs. And what I respect most is how deeply he understands the philosophy, the psychology, and the identity side of what it means to be a man as a founder, as a family person, and all of that. So, Eric Beck, welcome to the Great Men Podcast, brother.
Shane, man, thank you. Been looking forward to this, and just a privilege to be here, buddy.
What are you doing today out in Colorado? Is everything good out there right now? What's
Yeah,
happening, man?
Well, we're trying to experience winter, but summer seems to be here, so trying to go ski, but it's like skiing in May, and but yeah, just you know,
All the things, bro. All the things.
making
We're in
it through.
OCD world in Kentucky. It's 70 degrees one day and it's 7 degrees the next. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
right? Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
dude, me and you, we ran the roads together. We've
We have.
been to battle together. We've been to
Dude,
the wars together, man.
most of
And
the states in the United States have had our feet on it at some point together.
yes, at some point, dude. But we've also had a lot of great cigars, a lot of great dinners, and just talking about the philosophy of
Yeah.
life, man. And you know, we've worked with a lot of men. We've worked with a lot of people who've built companies and done different things. And man, it's something I'm seeing more and more, and I've experienced in my own life. You know, the last few years even is burnout. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for
And
sure.
and burnout's interesting. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Like, you know, working with all these guys and working with these people who are doing these things like we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what do you think it costs a man personally, like,
Mhm.
to get burnout, especially when it comes to like work and career?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think there's not anybody out there who's tried to do something significant that hasn't hit burnout multiple
Totally.
times.
Yeah, man.
And I think the warning is that if you burn out, you are burning up the future because recovery from that burnout is not going to be as quick as you think.
Mm,
So it's kind of like once the plane crashes, rebuilding a plane is way harder than just flying that plane a little bit smarter or landing the plane a little earlier to get fuel.
mm,
So I think as men we kind of feel like, well, I can do the hard thing, I can do the tough thing, and I can like make my way back. And that's true. I mean, I think all of us as entrepreneurs have had the big failure, many of them, and then all right, got to start over. All right, do the next thing, and we know how to do that. But I do feel like part of it is it hurts the legacy because every time we have a start over moment, whoever's following us, whether that's your kids or that's just other, folks that are in the next generation, you know, it's like it's sending a bit of a delay shockwave in their
totally,
direction.
man.
They could have been building on something. And I think sometimes that burnout is actually a sign of we should have let go earlier. Like we should have
Mm,
already been handing off that thing. So for founders who generally are great starters and are moderate to bad managers, but are horrific finishers,
totally.
I think burnout is because they're trying to manage and finish, and they should have handed that thing off and started that next new thing, and yeah, something like
Dude,
that.
so I was recently diagnosed. I went through the process of, you know, going to doctor, therapy, psychiatrist, and got 100% diagnosed with severe ADHD, which you've been around me. You can
Mhm.
probably tell. It's funny because, like, you know, I look back at my career and just my life in general, and I realize that a lot of the things that like me and you do they're kind of not possible without my ADHD. Like they're super. I think that's why people with ADHD are gravitate toward like entrepreneurship and things like that. But it is that awareness of you can't finish. Like it's not that you get shamed for it with all the
Yeah,
freaking bro science Instagram
sure,
posts,
sure,
but
sure.
like that's just not your skill set, man. You know what I'm saying? And I remember when me and you, we were sitting down in Florida. We were working on a presentation, and like I could feel both of us really burn out, man. I could
Yeah,
totally feel it, dude. We were just sitting there, and we were just, man, we were just
yeah,
tired. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you've worked with so many like high profile entrepreneurs and things like that. Like why is it so hard for men, especially ADHD or not, to like let things go? Because even with my awareness, bro, like I'm like, no, I'm supposed to finish. I'm supposed to see this through. It's my one. I'm bearing this freaking cross across the finish line.
Yeah.
Like, what's
Yeah.
the when you work with these guys? What's the common theory you have? Like, why we do that to ourselves?
Well, I think some of it is, what's an adaptive strategy as a child is a maladaptive strategy as an adult. Like when
Ooh,
you're a kid and your parents are screaming at you because you got, I grew up in pretty poor circumstances. You better clean that plate. Well,
mm,
that makes sense. Like eat everything on your plate. We can't be wasting food. That makes perfect sense. And so you adopt that. And then when you're 25, and you're 100 pounds overweight and you're like, you don't know that's operating in you. And I feel like a lot of times this idea of finishing gets wrapped up in a type of responsibility like story. Like I'm
yeah,
not being responsible if I don't finish, being a completer, do what you said you do. All that is all great. Clean your plate. It's great until it isn't because it lives as an unrealistic demand. And again, I think we just kind of have the ego gets in there and the man thing gets in there and I can be stronger and I can be harder, I can do it or be smarter or whatever it is. But I feel like a lot of times those unconscious scripts are running in there and it's really just a matter of, well, you're a coach and you use this analogy way better than me, but it's like we start thinking we actually are every person on the whole team, wide
you're the
receiver,
players, not just
quarterback.
the
Yeah,
guy calling the plays. Yeah, man.
yeah. And I feel like it's like, especially when there's more pressure. So if there's some controversy or some angst or something's not going right,
Financial
I,
pressure, sales are
yeah,
down,
exactly.
whatever
I
it
think
is,
the
man.
tendency is to just overdo everything. But I also know that I've coached plenty of guys that have the opposite though. They are just caught in this loop of procrastination and they shame themselves. Right now it's like it's almost a sport to just shame men in any
Totally.
way for anything at any level. And it's like, where do these guys get to heal? Where's the
Yeah.
healing part? Nobody, you know, crucifixion, is the end of the story. You don't learn that guy getting crucified doesn't have an opportunity to learn.
He
And
ain't
I
coming
think
back like the guy in
he's
the story.
exactly like the one guy, right?
That one guy,
So
he came back.
yeah,
Us, not so much. You crucified, so
not
we're
so
pretty much
much.
done, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, it's not that we don't want to call a spade, but I do think that there's a culture around men of any mistake is an existential mistake that means you have fill in the diagnosis of whatever psychosis you're getting labeled with, and that's it, dude. You're done. And so,
Mm,
what does that do to the when you like? I'll tell you a story real quick. So I was in life-saving training, like lifeguard training, Red Cross lifeguard training. And the guy, this is back in the 80s when I was in high school, and the guy who was teaching it was a Vietnam vet. So just like grizzled, hardened, just dude. And a good guy, but just like, don't mess with this guy. And I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, and he had us all in the deep end of this Olympic-sized pool. And it's like, I don't know, maybe 12 feet, 14 feet, something like that. And we're all treading water. And he was like, here's the exercise. You're going to all be blindfolded. You're going to be treading water in a circle. So just stay where you are. I'm going to slip down to the bottom of the pool, push off on the bottom of the pool, and come up and take one of you down. As soon
Jesus
as you guys
Christ.
hear the person is taken down, you can take off your blindfold and see what happens. And like the most nerve-wracking thing was not when you got taken down, because he held on to you pretty hard, but not too bad. And you figured out how to escape, and he kind of talked you through how to do that. And it was just good to manage the panic and all that. The real nerve-wracking was when it was the person beside you.
Mm,
And you hear that rush of water and you're bracing for what's going to happen. And it takes you a good 10 seconds to realize
figure
it's
out where
not
he
me.
is.
And I
Yeah.
think that in the gotcha culture around toxic masculinity, fill in the blank, that whole approach is making men so hesitant,
Yes.
because that guy just got crucified, like,
Yeah, man.
and everybody draws back, and then you get all this weird kind of double speak. You can't just say that sucks. You have to say, that was less than positive, and the way that I felt about it may not be your feelings, but for me, my truth and all that weird, goofy language that people are using now, I feel like that's a huge impediment to accomplishment because, like the man in the arena, Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorites. I know one of your favorites. And I'll never forget that moose picture. you might tell everybody about the moose
You may be
picture.
cool, but you're not as cool as Teddy Roosevelt riding a moose. Google it. You know what I'm saying? Just come on
So
now. Come on
awesome.
now.
But yeah, but the man in the arena, he sweats and fails and gets up again and has got dirt on his face. And it's like he's not the timid soul sitting in the bleachers who know, and I'm probably butchering it, but it's like who knows nothing of victory and nor of defeat. It's just that
Yeah.
gray man. And I feel like it's what a lot of us face as a culture, right? The zeitgeist is this, the risk taker, the guy that tries, and again, I feel like there's a hesitation that becomes a procrastination that becomes a playing it safe, and
Yeah.
you're not getting to your edge.
Totally,
You're
man.
not pushing to your edge, and then there's not authenticity. There's not
You know what I think
the
it is, though? You know what I
yeah.
think? Like, you made me think of something kind of more meta here.
Yeah, man.
Like, everything in the past. Well, this is different times. I know that everybody that goes through history says that. I used to be a history teacher. This is what everybody kind of thinks.
Yeah,
But I do think the last 6 years have been different. We got the pandemic.
exactly.
The internet hit its peak of like being able to like make money, work at home, like all
Mhm.
this crazy new opportunity. And then all of a sudden, you have this shift in AI
Yeah,
and just all the craziness of social media constantly in our brains. We're not supposed to know what's happening more than 10 miles away from our house, people. Let's be realistic.
yeah,
And like, I feel this cultural pressure. Maybe this is just on me. I feel like we went years just downing men, destroying men, like people not realizing that you don't have roads or anything without men. You don't have 99% of the economy without things that men create. Like,
yeah.
and but there is this huge shift, and it's not really fear. It's just total ambiguous uncertainty. And what I'm feeling more is a lot of people, including a lot of men, are panicking because there's no playbook, there's no clear path what to do, but everybody knows that it's going to take men to get through it and fix it. And like I feel this in my home, like I feel uncertainty about certain things, and I feel my spouse look to me. I feel my kids are starting. They're in high school. They're about to graduate. I'm seriously sitting here thinking like there may not be jobs for them in 10 years. This is like something is shifting, and then everybody turns at the men, and the moment in history to me feels like failure is very catastrophic at this point. Like because if something goes sideways now with the technology we have, with the economy that we have, that if it feels like you can't fail. I feel there's such a pressure in every micro decision I'm making for me, for my family, for my business, for just everything. And I've never felt that before, Like we came up in the let's say that we started peaking in life 2000 to 2025 or whatever. Like that was when we kind of rose up in our businesses and lives.
Mhm.
I felt it was more of an optimism and more of a fail fast. And,
For
you could
sure.
get things wrong and there'd be forgiveness for you as a man because you are that man in the arena. You're the guy taking the risks, but you don't want to be judged for the outcome. You want to be judged for the attempt. I think that's what most men would really like to have. But dude, I feel a pressure, bro. I feel like there's so much pressure and it feels external. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you feeling
Mhm.
anything like that? Are you hearing
Yeah, well,
conversations
I
like
mean,
that?
yeah, for sure. And I think, there's, the story of Adam and Eve, right, is instructive because when things went wrong, Adam hid. So there really is a thing in men around hiding from failure, hiding from accountability, hiding from truthfulness that it affects all of us.
Yeah.
And facing that down and being a man of integrity is crucial. And there's also the side of the human experience where, you've got to find a mission, you got to be on mission, and it feels like all the missions are gone.
Yeah, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick a mission right now, bro.
Exactly. It's like, well, there's not any big war. I mean, less than 0.5% of the country is in the military. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's go be a doctor. Well, okay, there's 19 years of school and all the other issues that go along with
And a
modern.
robot's going to do it better than you in 10 years.
Exactly. So it's kind of
So,
like all the missions are getting removed. And then the only mission that really exists at this point is go play in the NFL or fight in the UFC. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, well, now you're back to a half of a half of a half a percent of all males will ever do that. And it's so if you just look at the law of averages, it's like, what the heck is the future of my life outside of just consumption? And
Yeah,
I feel
man.
like that creates just an incredible like depression
Yeah.
and sense of like, well, and then I think the other thing that comes along with it is the brainstem, dopamine hit of all of our technology. That's like, well, my life feels meaningless and I can't find a mission, but Call of Duty is so fun that
Yeah, because you
somehow
drop in, you kill somebody, you get out, and you do
yeah,
it
it kind
again.
of yeah numbs you up enough that it was awesome and you get some good bro energy, and then it's like our tools are eating us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Is what it feels like. It's like there's that sense of like, and I like all that stuff, and I'm not putting any of that stuff down,
No,
including
I
the
use
NFL.
AI. I post on social
Inclu-
media.
yeah,
You can't.
including it. Yeah,
It
yeah,
is what it is. Our
yeah,
world. That's what
yeah.
we
It
live
is. It
in,
is.
whether you
So
like
I
it or
feel
not.
like I mean, I think that feeling of I've got to find a mission, but it's not out there for me. I think it's two things. For the younger generation, so I'm my 50s. For the younger generation, I will say people under 30. I think they've been taught.
You don't look a day over 49.
Oh, come on, my man. I appreciate you. But for the younger folks, I think that they've been taught to wait for the structure to be given to them, right?
Oh
Because they're
yeah.
so dependent on technology. Everything's been thought out for them. They just step into it and then they're the experiencer. And I think
Hmm.
for those of us maybe older than 30, we had to kind of create our experience. So we kind
Yeah.
of looked at the raw materials of the world and started kind of fashioning things together. So there's already a real divide in communication between those two groups. But I think for all of us, it really has got to come back to if you don't know what your mission is, that is your mission.
Yeah.
What am I
To
going to
find
do
it.
day, week, month, quarter to be like finding what lights me up and finding, what I can devote myself to without the standard of my calling or my
Mm,
destiny. It's like that's so big and like
so lame,
what
dude.
yeah, what's going to
Yeah.
measure up to that? It's like
And I've bought into it. Don't get me wrong. Like I was called to do this, destined to do that,
sure,
born to do this. Like
sure.
whatever, man. That's fine. But like I've been on a serious healing journey for the past
Mm,
like 6 years,
mm.
and I gotten really into. Have you ever read Alfred Adler's
No.
books? But
No, no, no.
so Alfred Adler, this has kind of shaped my worldview. I think more in the last 2 years than anything probably ever has
Okay.
in my adult life. And like so, Alfred Adler was this psychologist, and he was kind of like he was around the time with Freud and Jung. He was
Okay.
considered the
Yeah,
third
yeah.
guy at that time.
Okay.
But he had something you're touching on here that he talked about, and this really changed my perspective on a lot of things. Like we are given these structures, and we're supposed to go find our calling, step into our purpose, and all these things. And we have all these memories, and we have all these things, but it's like it's kind of like the world was giving us kind of frameworks to find this ourselves,
Yeah.
but then we bought into those stories that they sold us. Like
Exactly.
I always thought growing up, just this is just how I was programmed, was like if I did a checklist of certain things, I would be a great man. Like
Yeah.
if I,
Yeah.
you know, went to school, if I got a job, did a career, paid my bills, like showed up for the kids, did the dishes, for the sometimes, whatever it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and like dude, I have it all, man. Like you put it down on paper and Shane Sams has got it. But bro, about 5 or 6 years ago, I realized like, oh man, that was just somebody else's list. It was somebody else's
Exactly.
checklist. It was somebody else's thing. Even my businesses, like, when I started a business, I was listening to people like Pat Flynn and Russell Brunson and all these people, and I was just like, oh, that's how you do it. I'll do that.
Hmm.
And then when I started Flip Lifestyle, I was like, oh, cool, I'll just be an influencer. Oh, cool, I'll get up on stage. This is what this means. And like we're just doing all these things everybody else says to do, and we confuse that for finding what like we are supposed to do and want to do.
Right.
And then the problem with me where I broke was back in like 2023, I had about a 6 month period, dude, where I I can't explain how depressed and anxious I was. Like
Wow.
I was functional
Yeah.
every day. I was doing what I was supposed to do,
Yeah.
but the horror of opening my eyes in the morning,
Yeah.
the deep, deep, dark fatigue that would overwhelm me at night is
Yeah.
totally unplaced. Some of it was hormones. My hormones were whacked out, so I started taking peptides and hormones and got that straightened out. And then some of it was I was overweight, so I got lost overweight. Some of it was in the body. I went to the body first. But when the body was fixed, there was still this something that wasn't right. And I realized what it was I had an identity. I had a reputation. I was known exactly how I wanted to be known, but it was either that identity was outgrown or it was never the one I should have wrapped in the first place. But it was still a loss of identity. And that's what I've been, my journey for the last 2 years has been like, oh, hold on now, we got to go internal, and I got to figure out what my not what my I don't really say mission and purpose anymore. It's more like looking for that true authentic identity, and then your businesses flow out of that, your parenting flows out of that, your relationships like flow out of that. Have you ever had like a true identity crisis in your journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was a musician, you might remember, for about 6 years. I toured, and, that was my whole life, pretty much from like age 13 to, I'm going to say, like 24 or so. It was like nothing but music. And I remember I played at the Lincoln Center in New York City, and I remember coming out after the really successful concert that night and coming out onto the street and just having this total crisis of having absolutely no sense of what it would mean to continue being a musician.
After a peak of being at the Lincoln Center, I go to
Out of
Dizzy's when I'm in New
nowhere.
York. You ever go to Dizzy's, the jazz club in New York,
Yeah.
at the Lincoln Center? Oh, I love Dizzy's, man.
Exactly.
At nighttime,
Yeah.
skyline.
I
But
think
like
Wynn
that's peak musician
It is.
level stuff, man.
It is. And so, like, I mean, that was a bus that ran over me. I mean, I was like, I just hit that big, I checked that box, what's next? And when I went, it was like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning, I was just out in the street, and I was like, I can't even imagine continuing to be a musician. And it was like what you said. It was like 6 months of like functional, but like
you're alive, but you ain't alive
no,
during
you're
an
not.
identity crisis, man.
And the funniest thing is, I also had that happen when I got out of the military, and maybe a story for a different time. The funniest thing is that strangers know. So I had a woman who was like, I'm going to guess she was in her 60s or 70s. And I decided to get out of the military. And that was, again, another huge identity crushing, dreams ripped away from you, not going to go like you thought it was going to go moment. And I was walking around the block under the weight of this decision. And these 2 old ladies are sitting on their porch. And, you think you're functional and you're okay. And I'm just trying to walk it off, right? This old lady is like, "Are you okay?" And I like looked.
That's amazing.
I like looked up, like I was surprised. Like I was like, "Of course I am," but I didn't say that. I was like, "No," and like it's like I needed her to say that to me for me to go, "Dude, you are not okay. You are not okay." And it's like, I think when we have those moments where it really is a deconstruction, it's kind of like when you get rolled in the ocean by some big old wave, the worst thing you can do is fight it. It's like, man, let it do its work,
The wave will pass and you can get a breath before the next one.
Yeah.
So
I feel like deconstruction is viewed as failure, but again, you're talking about fail fast. I really think you can't skip it. You were saying earlier, maybe you had assumed some identities that maybe weren't quite in alignment with you. I would just say, as your friend, no, you didn't. You did exactly what you should have done. And because we only ever have the tools we have, and we only ever have the menu we have. Yeah. And later you can say, well, you could have chose this and this. Dude, if that's not on my menu,
oh yeah,
I cannot choose that, even if it is right. Yeah.
When you're making calls in life,
yeah, exactly.
You only have the arrangement of the atoms in the universe at that moment. and
That's
and
exactly right.
sometimes there's nothing to do, but you get to a point where you realize it. I've actually had a bunch of identity crises. Actually, like my first identity crisis in life was I got hurt playing football, had to miss my senior year, and I was really
Oh,
good. I was a good football player. I never would have played in college. I'm too short, but like I was really good. It was my whole identity. It brought honor to my family. My
yeah,
mom was loving it, all these things. But again,
yeah,
I didn't even necessarily want to play football. But when I put on the pads for 6 or 7 years and I'm like, I'm going to do this, it's what everybody else wants me to do. They say this is good. It was good. There was a lot of good things about it. I break
mhm,
my knee, I'm out. My coaches just like stopped talking to me.
right.
Your friends changed. Like it was just total annihilation of that identity. And I look at it, and when I was lost in college. I mean, I just kept moving forward and doing whatever and dating and all that good stuff. But like when I came out of college, I didn't have any identity. I worked for my dad for a little while. And I think that's what made me go back to football. I don't know if I even really wanted to be a football coach,
Mhm.
but I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm missing something. The last thing I remember that gave me some satisfaction was football. And I was like, screw it, I'm gonna be a college football coach. And I accomplished that goal in a year. Like when you get direction, you're gonna do
Mhm.
something.
Yeah,
Then I get in college football, wasn't really fitting. Went to high school football for 10 years. And dude, I remember sitting at my desk at lunch one day and just looking around going, there is no way that I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to.
yeah,
Like Friday nights were fun, but
yeah, sure.
like this was not my identity, right? And then so I let that one go. And it's so and then around 2020, 2021, I started having another great epiphany that something was off as the person that I was known as. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? It
Mhm.
just wasn't feeling right, but it hadn't landed. And it's crazy because strangers do know. I started going to like
Right,
healing workshops. I started going to journeys. I started doing all these different things, and I was getting around all these people that were no context of anybody
right,
else I was hanging around.
exactly.
And I think the reason they know is because like take your wife or your
Mhm.
spouse, whatever. Like your spouse only her only reference is the versions of you that she's known. And so if you're off, she's trying to be like, "Oh, get back to work, do this, maybe we do this." Like it's pulling you back into this identity. Your friends, like they have you are a different character in 1,000 stories. You don't even know who you are, and then
Totally,
you have no
totally,
idea how everybody else actually
totally,
views you. So like
exactly.
these people have a reference of who they've
Right.
known
That's
and who
right.
you presented as. But a stranger can look you right in the face and be like, "You are lying
Right,
right now
exactly,
to yourself."
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Have you seen people that you've worked with, or maybe just yourself, when they've come through that? Is there like a thread or a theme of like, this is the crisis well navigated, or this is the identity, deconstruction,
Yeah.
toolkit? Like, what what has gotten you through, some of those? When you pop out the other side, you're like, wow, what just happened?
I think one thing is, as a guy who's done a lot of work on himself, is that basically once you're aware of this, you cannot be unaware of it. So be careful
Mm,
what you wish for. I think a lot of people choose the safe path of just, you know what, I can't figure this out. This is too hard. I'm just going to stay in the same identity and retire.
yeah,
Then
just
they're
re up.
miserable on their deathbed.
Yep, just re up.
I,
Yep.
I think that's the most common path that men pick because once you know it, you can't unknow it, and you realize that like, ah, crap. The first 40 years, I was getting all these wounds, and now I'm going to have to spend the rest of my life healing these, and it's never going to be done. I think deconstruction is very good word because you have to deconstruct a lot of like programming from your parents, programming from your church, programming from what everybody else told you about God, programming from
Mm,
just all the different things, man. And that's
yeah,
jarring, man, because those are our railroad tracks
yeah,
when we don't know what to do in life.
yeah. I heard a guy call them our cherished illusions.
Oh,
It's like
maybe it's cherished delusions.
yeah, yeah. It's like we practice those.
Yeah, man.
We've had that story, that phrase, that idea, it's so grooved into our mind. And then when the tectonic plates move, and you are like, oh my gosh, I do think you're right. I think most people are like, I want back in the matrix.
This is too hard.
You know,
Yeah.
I took
It's like
the red pill, but I want to go back. I want
I don't
to, what's it?
I know this steak isn't real,
Yeah,
but it's delicious.
exactly. I was gonna say, exactly.
Yeah, there is no
Uh,
spoon, baby.
yeah, and
Yeah,
he's like, and
man.
I don't want to put me back in. I don't want to remember
I don't want to remember
anything.
nothing. I don't want to know nothing. No, just
Yeah,
rewind. I'm
and
done,
I think
man.
that, like you said, unfortunately, there is no way to really do that without splitting. And I would say that that's what a spiritual version of schizophrenia is
Mm,
you cannot hold those contradictory realities at the same time. So
yeah,
you compartmentalize at that deep soul level and you just bail on that identity to go
yeah,
to the easier, more known, more secure, more whatever game you're playing of, yep, now I'm going to go back into the routine that I was in before that's killing me, but at least I know it. And I think what's crazy is that people that are the most dogmatic about their worldview have
oh yeah,
had that break and they've chosen back into the matrix. And that's why they defend the matrix so strongly. Kind of when you run up against that fundamentalism or that
yeah,
super dogmatic, aggressive, any worldview, I'm not talking about Christianity, any worldview where it's
yeah.
just totally this is the truth and I'm the one who knows the truth. When you run into that, I think what that means is earlier in their journey, they fractured and
Mm,
trying to deal with the contradictions of that fracture, they bailed on one side of it
yep.
and clung to the other side. And now they have to defend that so much because if there was some truth, maybe in that other side over there, that's it's hard for humans to hold. I've heard it said that the message of the cross in kind of the archetypal is those arms stretched out is the tension of opposites.
Yeah,
It's not black and white. It's like
yeah, yeah.
these
It's the
both
polarity
of
of it.
these things are true, and that makes you want to split and get off that cross and get back in the
Or
matrix.
or it's like I've seen a lot of people go both ways here. Like the people that kind of open up and then snap back
Uh-huh.
because it's just too much. I think the reason that men go so dogmatic in that regard is because we are just craving certainty.
Yeah, of course.
And the
Of course.
problem is most people get certainty by defending their position and convincing other people that they're right or finding
Yes,
other people that agree with them, because the more people that says yes you're thinking correctly, the more you feel safe.
of course,
And
of
but
course.
the game really is like if then you're still hopelessly tied to the external whatever you've been given. But
Yeah,
if you can get through that messy middle and you can get to the other side of, my favorite place to be lately has just been I don't know. Like I
yeah.
don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know. And that's kind of okay because
It
like
has to be.
if I mean because I don't know what the business is going to be. I don't know what the economy is going to be. I don't know what my kids are going to do. They're crazy, right? It's like we just don't know, and there's more of a peace there that I find. And the guys that I've seen that have not plugged back in and have went the other way and went healing,
Mhm.
I think you asked me kind of what I've seen people do. Like
Yeah,
I think there are some steps to it, and I think everybody's different. I think that one is you got to have the courage to look in the mirror and then go inside. Like the kingdom of heaven is within, baby. I'm a little mystical, man. You know what I'm
oh,
saying? Like I
mhm,
really believe that we missed the point of that, like
mhm,
to look inside yourself. But the problem is we know the answers are in there, but so is the shadow. And
mhm,
so is
mhm.
all the shame and guilt and hard things and all the things that you don't tell anybody else and that stuff. And then I think that guys also, once they look internally and they get through that hard part, you have to learn some new skills that men are not taught. I'll be 48 next month. And I just learned in December of 2024 how to grieve. I,
Mhm.
I did not understand grief. I didn't understand the value of it because grief over certain things, like things that realities that didn't come to pass, illusions that were shattered, like
Mhm.
the grief hurts so bad people are scared of it, but you can't have relief until after it. Here's where it came from. I woke up one morning after a dream in a hotel in Tucson, Arizona. And like I had an experience, last year my father had a major, he basically 2024, my father basically died on Christmas Day and I had to revive him. And the next month or two was just hell, man. It was just like the most carnage you could ever have in a family and everything else, because this was just the patriarch, everything's falling apart. And the way I coped with that was with, well, let's get back out on the road. Let's go
Of
speak. Let's
course.
get so
Yeah.
busy. Let's build this business. Let's focus on this. Let's do this and, hardcore and do that. And then about a year later in 2025, in December 2025, I woke up after this dream and damn, man, I grieved that moment. And then I had a couple other deaths last year that I had same thing. Like I read this guy's eulogy and then the next day I got on an airplane and went somewhere else, just got busy again.
Yeah.
And I when I woke up that morning, I went out and I walked in the desert for about 2 hours, just crying, man, grieving, wailing at sometimes. And I was like, and it really hit me that like in the story of Jesus, I've talked about this on the podcast before. When we talk about the story, again, everybody believes different things, and I'm a Jesus follower, and like it's like I realized that the most important part of that story is actually not the resurrection, and it's not the love of the sacrifice. It's when God grieved in the middle. Like the grief is what made the resurrection possible, because he had to feel that grief, where the ground shook and the veil torn. And I'm not saying any of these things literally happen. I'm just saying, like, I think that's really the point, because when I learned how to grieve, I can't explain how good I felt afterwards. It was like the best rush of goodness. But men are just told not to do that and not to cry.
Or that it's
and
weak. It's a weakness.
Or that it's weak. And like, it's like you grieve to get up and go to work on Monday morning. That's literally what I was taught growing up. If someone dies on Friday, you bury them on Saturday, you cry a little on Sunday, and you get back to work.
Yeah.
And I think we're missing that, man. So the guys that I've seen doing it, to your point, where like they've learned how to get these emotions that we're not supposed to feel out. And then, for me personally, it was getting out of my head and into my body. Once I can, work out or get a workout in, or breath work, or smoke a cigar out in the woods, like once I do that, that's kind of how I've been able to start rebuilding identity back again. Any of those things, like when you had that music thing happen, like, again, you're younger at this time, so you probably got more wisdom now. How did you get past that? Like, did you have an identity crisis like that, man?
Yeah.
I bet your whole life at 20 that you was going to be a musician. Now the next 50 years are screwed up, dude.
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, I think that it is what you said. I don't know that I've handled my identity crisis as great, or in any way, that'd be like a model. I feel like I probably did what you just said, which is I just tried to do the next thing for a while, and you're just kind of numb and walking through life like a zombie. That was actually when I got into teaching, and I had always thought of teaching as like, if those who do and those who can't do teach. And I had just such an arrogant attitude about teaching. And I had, in that next little window of time, the opportunity to teach. And somebody actually asked me to do a devotional on faith. And I had never done any kind of teaching. I grew up in the church, but I'm not a pastor, didn't go to seminary, anything like that. And so I thought, I have no idea. So I go get the Strong's Concordance. And I just look up every instance of the word faith in the whole Bible and just start systematically trying to put together some sort of, like, something made sense. And I shared this at a Bible study, pretty nervous. And a woman came up to me at the end. Her name was Linda. And this was in England. Never saw her before, never saw her since. She walked up and she said, "You have a
More
gift."
strangers. You got strangers.
I got strangers just
Hey,
coming in my life.
when you get stuck, maybe the answer is just go walk around town and bump
Just
into
wait.
people.
Wait for a stranger, right?
Have we discovered something here besides therapy
I think
that works?
so. Ed, just wait for somebody you don't know. Just get out there and get
tell you what
visible,
to do.
and wait for somebody to tell you what to do. So
Jesus.
she said, she came up to me at the end of it, and she was like, "Eric, I just want you to know you have a gift, and you're going to be a teacher." Now, I was polite. I mean, grew up in Tennessee, got Southern manners and all that. I was polite, but inside I was like, "Heck no, I reject this. This is no." And over the next year or two, I had a couple more instances where it was like happenstance. Hey, this person, it can't do this. Could you just fill in? And what happened was my heart just caught fire for teaching. So I feel like sometimes we want to get out of that desert, out of that dark night of the soul. But other times I feel like maybe it's more wisdom to just trust it and let it run its course and just, you know, I'm not saying wallow in it because that can happen too. But, that thing of, hey, Monday morning, get up and just get back after it, I think can kind of just blind us. It's kind of like we got the disease, but we didn't get enough of it to get immunity. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, totally,
dude,
dude.
let
I
it get
feel that.
in there. Let it
Yeah.
eat let it eat you up.
That was actually in my depressions, in the couple times this has happened to my life, which is always around some kind of identity crisis that I've
Mhm.
noticed. I think the first thoughts when it happens is, God, I'm not supposed to feel this way.
Right, of course. Yeah.
I'm
Something's
supposed
wrong
to
with
be,
me. Yeah.
something's wrong. I'm supposed to be grateful. I've got a
Yeah.
hot wife. I've got plenty of money. My kids are good in school. Everybody says I'm awesome when I go speak. Like all these things happen, and you're like, I shouldn't feel this way, and you start
Mhm.
shoulding yourself basically,
Yeah, sure.
and then
Sure.
you forget, like, no, you're actually designed to feel this way. Like your body is telling you information. It's trying to tell your brain that something's off. This is not the
Yeah.
correct
Yeah, that's right.
path,
When
and you
yeah,
got
that's
to
right.
learn to
Because
listen to it.
we when we're dysregulated and disorganized emotionally, right? We have these strategies that we try to employ to bring it back together, which usually like is the top of the puzzle box. And we're like
Yeah.
trying to match it back to that. And when the puzzle box top is gone, i.e. the identity crisis, right? It's a little bit more like, hey, you got to start, you need more information than you have right now. That and maybe
Mm,
this is a stranger just telling you, dude, you're not okay or whatever. But it's like that outside information, but it's also the inside information, like you're saying. Like, because my journey was not quite your journey physically. I was not really an athlete at any point in my life, but I definitely needed to go through a process of kind of reclaiming sovereignty of my body and
mm.
stewarding
Taking
it.
off the suit of the
Yeah,
musician and
exactly. And so,
putting on a
and
new suit.
usually for us men, that happens with injury or crisis in some way. And I feel like you're right. The very first thing that we're given to steward is our body, and it's
Yeah.
not just a machine to get stuff done. It's an encyclopedia. Like
Yeah.
it's so
It's the
much
only thing you
information.
control, guys. I
Yeah.
hate to tell you this because, like, when I didn't know this then, but I know it now based on the story that I've created about this. But like in 2022, I almost died. Like I got a staph infection in my blood. I was 280 pounds. I was in the hospital for 9 days, literally going to sleep every night, not knowing if I was going to wake up. Antibiotics not working, and your body will just shut you down because
Sure
it's
will.
it's storing every bit of that stuff that you're suppressing and you're not like
Yeah.
looking at, man.
Yeah.
And then that's how I got out of the depression too, was like, one, started testosterone, two, started doing peptides, lost a bunch of weight, three, I don't care what's going on in my life, I can put 10 toes down when my eyes open and I can move, and
Yeah.
that's really it for the day.
Yeah.
That's all I
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
Right now I've got this great routine. It's my favorite routine I've ever created for myself. I
Mhm.
don't know why this works for me, dude, but like as soon as I wake up, I get up, put a shirt on, get in the car, and I drive down to this redneck gas station. And I go in and talk to the guy for a minute, and I get me a drink, and
Yeah.
then I drive back. And like I
Yeah.
go, as long as
Yeah.
I moved, I
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah.
man.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
I think going back to Adler, two
Yeah.
things I learned from him were, one is that you don't really understand the identity you think you have. When you look back at your life, like tell me, what'd you do yesterday at 3:33 right now off the top of your head? What was the exact thing you were looking at? What did you see at 3:33 yesterday?
Yeah. No way to know. No way to
There's
know.
no way to know,
Yeah.
right?
No
But
way
you
to know.
lived it. You were
Yeah.
there,
Sure.
right? So you think you have memory of this, right? But then,
Yeah.
like, same thing. A month ago, you
Sure.
probably remember even less. That a
For
year
sure.
ago, you remember even less. Even things you think you remember, your body created a stories to help you survive in that moment.
Right.
That's all it is. So
That's right.
Adler has a philosophy that there is no trauma. There's only an
Mm.
interpretation of events based on incomplete memory.
Mm.
And then if that's true, oh man, I was supposed to be a college football coach and be a head coach someday, and I'm supposed to do all the. Are you sure? Like that's what you were supposed to do, right? Are you
Right.
sure
Right.
about that?
Right.
So that really freed me from
Mm.
the stories of the past. And
Mm.
it's like, it's never too late to have a good childhood. I can just
Sure.
reinterpret it from a different
Sure.
angle,
Sure.
So
That's right.
that kind of freed me up. And then
Yeah.
another philosophical thing that I learned was the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh,
That was the one that really weighed me down. Like, God, I've been teaching and
yep.
coaching for 10 years. I remember when I quit my job,
Yeah.
I passed my letter of resignation over to the principal. I went in really early one morning so nobody would know I could get it done. And he looked at it and he was shocked because you just don't quit teaching jobs in the middle of school year. And he goes, Shane, how long have you been teaching? I said, about 10 years, man. And this is what he said: 10 years and
Mm.
you're going to give up all that retirement? And I looked at him and I said, there's 18 years left before I can cash that in. I don't care what happened in the last 10 years. I took my money out of retirement and started investing it myself. And but like that sunk cost
Hmm.
traps people, especially
It does.
entrepreneurs. I've
Totally.
been building this business for 10 years. I can't let it go now. But when you start realizing that the stories you created were these delusions anyway, and
Totally.
then it doesn't matter what you've put in up until this point because the only thing you can do is now and tomorrow. So do something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
that kind of helped me get free from some of that stuff too. Not
Yeah. I
totally,
think,
man.
and
I've not arrived by
I
any
also think that
stretch.
that's I also think that's why the physical matters, right? Because the thing about doing things that are extremely physically hard, it could be a Spartan race, it could be a marathon, it could be weightlifting, it could be whatever.
Deadlift, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you will be right here, right now. That is it, dude. You cannot be in the past and you cannot be in the future. And like there has to be a mechanism that brings the man into the now. And it can't just be intellectual. I mean, we can just
Yeah.
talk about the idea of
Oh,
being
you and I are
present.
the worst for this, bro. We can
Well,
philosophize our
sure.
way into any trap.
But yeah, and the reason that I think that it's valuable, even the way we share it as teachers and speakers, is because we have a habit of finding our edge, right? I don't know what you're curling these days, but I feel certain that in your last set, you're not finishing your last set. You're struggling and you're going to failure at some regular interval.
Got to fail to grow,
I was
baby.
running
Got to
this
fail to
morning.
grow.
Yeah, and I ran this morning and I was like, I did these little, it's like the Swedish word fartleks, where what you're doing is you're sprinting, right, for 20 seconds to 100%, and then you jog for 2 minutes. I hate those. I'm sorry, totally terrible. Like I'm like, am I going to stumble because I'm running so fast? Can I control my body? And it's like, right, that was a good chunk of time where you are not in the future and you are not in the past and there's no identity and there's no ego. There's just edge and survival. You're at a maximum. And I feel
Yeah.
like that is, for me personally, it didn't have to be every day, and we're not adrenaline junkies. It's not that. But if it's not regular, like weekly, it has to
Yeah.
be, I would say, and I've said to my sons, it has to be at least weekly that you're like, I'm trying to do something I am not sure I can do. And you are
Yeah.
in that real edge struggle. There's a purifying that brings that washes away all the BS and the false stories that start, I mean, what if you just said, look, maybe your life for the next 10 years is starting stuff so you can hand it off? What if you just
Mm,
got that in your brain? You
yeah.
don't need to manage it. You don't need to finish it. You need to start cool, awesome stuff with the idea of handing it off and forget about the money.
Yeah.
Start something that's really useful so it can be handed off. Maybe it's the opposite for somebody. They're like, I need to find somebody who's starting something and I
Yeah.
need to
Totally.
make it work for them. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
so I don't want to glorify the entrepreneur. It's not that. But I
No,
do
no, no.
feel like the edge is key, to
Yeah.
keep us
I,
clear.
and with my journey too, like one thing I've noticed lately is I was definitely in that come up in the entrepreneur world where you kind of let things go and you know what I'm saying? Like you got to hand things off and hire fast and all these things. And there's some things that I'm kind of doing now, and I'm just like, the challenge exceeds the skill set a little bit, especially with some of this AI stuff as I'm trying to figure out agents and all this other thing like that. But it's like these are things like I would historically hand off, and I'm like, no, it actually pushes me in a really healthy way to
Mhm.
be the one who's doing this thing. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like there is a piece in that a little bit when you take
Mhm.
some things back on or completely cut things
Mhm.
off. Like I've
Mhm.
had two times in my career, dude, where I've had businesses that were making 6+ figures passively, and I just turned them off because I was like, I don't care about it's just taking up bandwidth in a place I don't want to be. I mean, I don't want to check the
Mhm.
dashboard an hour a month. That's not laziness. That's not a
Mhm.
problem. That's a freaking giant neon Batman sign in the clouds of this should not exist in your
Yeah,
field of view
yeah.
because it's
You,
taking
you're
up like space. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
I do. I
It's hard
do.
to let those things go, though, man. It's really hard to let go old ways of doing things. It's
Well, it
really,
is,
really
and I
tough,
think
dude.
that's not just because we have a sense of identity, but all those other values, responsibility, continuity, predictability, stability. I mean, that's all in there, and you feel like Cortez burning the ships.
Yeah.
You're like,
Which is
man,
usually our
that
answer as men. Let's just burn it all down and
yeah,
start
there's,
over.
there's no plan B. Exactly.
Yeah, no plan B. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
How can men recognize this faster? I think that's another. We're talking first principles here a little bit. Like it's one
Yeah, yeah,
thing to say I'm in an identity crisis. You
yeah,
know you're in an identity crisis when you get depressed and you're anxious. I mean that's the
sure.
easiest way to know. But creating like structure to recognize it sooner, or that moment where you feel like something's off, but you think it's just tactical, structural, strategic, family, marriage, business. Like you
Hmm.
go through the list. I mean, in your own journey, like as we get older and wiser, are you finding that you notice this faster? Is it becoming even more hazy because now we're getting close to retirement? We don't want to screw things up. You know what I'm saying? I've got
Yeah,
15, 20 good years left, like whatever it is.
yeah.
How do we know when we need to let go and make changes? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do definitely relate to the older, getting older part. I'm not totally sure on the wiser part, but that the jury's out on that. But, because sometimes you just keep practicing the wrong thing. You just got to pop
Totally.
out somehow. But I think the answer to your question is other men. And I
Amen.
would put it in a way that
Yes.
may not be obvious. So we need people who know us. Because if everyone around us is a stranger, they're likely to believe the press. They're likely to
Yeah.
believe the resume and I just met you and there's like a politeness, you're not quite as blunt and all that kind of stuff. So, but when I think about it, I think it more archetypally. And this is one of my favorite movies is George C. Scott and Patton. And he's talking about, it's near the end of the movie, I think, and he's talking about Caesar riding into Rome and a slave is on the chariot with him, whispering in his ear that all glory is fleeting. And that archetypal
Mm,
role, in that case, it's a slave, but in Europe, the medieval Europe, let's say 1,000 years later, it would have been the court jester.
the
And it's
fool.
the
Yeah.
person who can say anything to the king with
Yeah.
no possibility of retribution. It's that so I feel like it's like we need our friends, we need our team, our community, our support, but we also have to have something that is just completely strident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a mechanism for that. And I don't know, in our society, like you were saying earlier, we've kind of torn down all the maps. There
Yeah.
used to be the map of church, go to church, the institution. There was academia, get your degree. You were a blacksmith. If you go back another, 10 generations, it's all about,
Even 30 years ago, you climbed the corporate ladder for 30
yeah,
years, and like
yeah,
you get into that railroad track, and that just doesn't
yeah. So
exist. Everybody changes jobs every 5 years now.
exactly right. So when all those maps are torn apart, it's like in a certain sense, it's good because some of those maps were ridiculous. They just
Totally.
enslaved people. They weren't what we thought they were. But also, a bad map and no map they're both problems.
Yeah, totally.
And so I feel like we're in a phase right now where we have to start building our maps. And I think looking at some of the ancient stories, some of the ancient wisdom. I love looking at the same story in different cultures. It's like there's like I don't know how many it is, 37 different cultures that have the flood story.
Oh yeah, me too,
And,
man. I geek
and
out
I,
over that.
I I so appreciate laying those over each other and
Yeah.
seeing what's there. And I feel like we're in a time of well, technically we're in a fourth turning. We're
Yeah.
in the end of the generation that is total upheaval. The first turning is the big fight against the bad thing, and then hopefully good prevails. The second turning is their kids who knew the austerity and the sacrifice. The third turning is prosperity, baby, because
Yeah.
those first two generations created safety, created the environment, and that third generation just creates ridiculous wealth. And the fourth turning where we're at now, this generation is the one where up is down and down is
Yeah.
up, and all the values just completely erode. But I
Because the
think we're
old
coming,
structures worked for a while until they didn't.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So I think we're coming out of that, which means we're going to have to do some recreating. All of us have that necessity of, we need community. We need somebody who can call bullshit on what we do, what
Yep.
we say and what we do.
100.
That gesture, but we also need people who are also in the arena, because
Yeah.
there's camaraderie to be like, bro, man, like
You
we're
gotta
in
have
this thing
brothers, man.
together.
Be
And then
your
there's
wife.
also sages. We need sages. We need people who
Totally.
are not in the arena, who
Yeah.
have been out of the arena for 10 years, 15 years, and they got a lot of gray hair. And they're not like the generation we just saw in politics who just wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
Like, be done, be done. All these,
Yeah.
folks, that just are trying to hold on to power.
Well,
And
I
they're,
think of the
yeah,
stories of like, which I've seen in my family, like the parents start a business, the kid comes into the business, and then the parents never retire, and they just stay until they're 90. And then,
exactly.
and no one gets to, no, that person doesn't get to ascend to the throne that they were working toward
They're
or
just
whatever.
they're a manager their whole life, and the
Yeah,
king
man.
is 90.
100%, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you,
I
and when you
love that
and
phrase they use in all the literature like this. The king is dead, long live the king.
yeah.
Such
Totally,
an
man.
important idea to recognize the office is not the person.
100%. It's got to be
Yeah.
passed forward.
So I
Man.
think those offices, those archetypal placeholders for our psychological health as a society, we have to have those, whether they've been abused or they've been misused. Of course they have. Of course, no pushback on the excesses or the shadow of those. But I think there's a false sort of righteousness on everything has to be the sunny side. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, the shadow side of too much courage is foolhardy.
Yeah.
It's
Recklessness.
and it's like every virtue has its too much and its too little. And I feel like hopefully we're heading into an area where we're starting to see things that way. It's
I
not
heard
right,
heard-
wrong, it's balance. Like, what's the
100%.
balance point?
I heard a great thing that I actually thought about you when I heard this, like
Uh,
because like Eric and I have had a lot of philosophical discussions. We're
Yeah,
like
for
boss.
sure.
And it was saying that like you said something that the interesting thing was about the maps, like and empires rise, fall, maps come and burn and change and whatever it is, and like the way we've all operated. The arc you painted there is this. I've read that before. It's like these fourth turnings of cycles, and
Yeah.
like there's
Yep.
a World War II, then there's prosperity, then the kids know prosperity, then the kids get something, and they're like, oh crap, my kids aren't going to get anything, and it's like it's this cycle, man, that you can just see playing out in our lives and society and whatever it is. The other day, I heard something that was really interesting. It was kind of talking about a similar arc to that, and it was like the only map that we all know is the map that we were given, and the maps aren't working, and now you have to write your own map, but you think it's about my map for my life. Well, I've got to set my goals and I've got to plan my life, but really it's that going inner work, man. It's mapping your internal world. I learned about parts work, which is amazing. If you don't do parts work in therapy or anything, you're crazy, because we're all a messy parliament of madness. And like, but I have really spent 2 or 3 years mapping my inner landscape of like, where does anger show up? That comes, I literally even like visualize it in like I drew it. I've got a drawing of the map. Like my map starts in this clearing in a forest. And then there's parts in my forest, and there's over here on this side, there's like this mountain with a cave, which is the shadow stuff. And like,
Yeah.
and it's allegorical, it's metaphorical, whatever you want to say. But like at the same time, there was a click at one point where I had looked at my anger that had driven a lot of my success. And I had looked at all these misassigned parts, like where they were going. And when that clicked, the understanding of my inner world, that's when the new map that's happening in my outer world started happening. Like how relationships started bending, how my interactions with my kids got a little different. Like, because, at one point it'd be like the anger would rise up in this, but then that anger, because they're messing with me or I'm stressed out or whatever.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
the anger can be replaced by a neutrality.
Sure.
Like, whoa, wait a minute. They have an inner world too. What is happening?
Yeah.
Right
Or
now?
curiosity.
the curiosity, man, about that. Yeah, that's a good word for it, actually. Like when you start mapping your inner world, the map of the outer world starts revealing itself. It's kind of like when you go through a game and like Zelda and the new level opens up.
Come on. Yeah,
Like,
totally.
you know what I'm saying? But like
Totally.
but like Zelda, that doesn't happen until the character in that moment deals with what's right in front of them, and then they move because they learned something or got the new sword or whatever. Now
Right.
they can reveal like the outer world, and I just think guys don't have the
Yeah.
vocabulary or the training or the whatever like to do it. And the only way you're gonna get that's around other men. You got to go sit
It's
down,
true.
hang out
I
with other
think
dudes, man.
I would just say other men, and in particular, other men in nature.
Oh,
Because,
amen, brother. That's why I'm going
right?
to do these retreats for great men, like out in the
Come on.
woods, because
Come on.
you can't do it around human built things. It's just
Yeah.
not possible. We're not
Yeah.
made to live in these wooden caves. We're just not
No,
meant to do it.
we're not. That's right, man. That's
Yeah,
right.
man. Good
Yeah.
stuff. All right,
Yeah.
bro. I love you, man. Good to
Oh,
talk to you today,
ditto.
man. Oh, yeah, man. I told Jocelyn earlier. I said this one I might be on the phone till 5:30. I don't know. But we'll just like go down the rabbit hole. What are you
Oh,
working on right
man.
now, too? What all's going on right now with you? What are you working on?
Good question. So I am really loving this acquisition wave that's here.
Mm,
So many small business owners, people call it the silver tsunami. Part of my focus has been on helping entrepreneurs grow their business, all that kind of good stuff. But in the last 5 years, I've just slowly started taking more and more of our focus over Founders Fire to, I don't want to improve my business. I want to sell my business. How do I get ready to
nice.
sell my business? So
Yeah.
there's that side of it. But then there's the acquire side, which is an
Mm,
investor mindset, which is like there's a lot of people who can't sell their business. So stats generally are like about 7 million businesses in America are for sale right now, but only maybe 14 or so percent are going to get sold in the next year.
if
And the
that ain't a
reason
sign of burnout, I don't know what is.
exactly. So the reason that the ones that don't sell is three basic things: owner dependency, lack of revenue growth, and too much turnover.
Mm,
Because no one wants to buy that business. I don't want to buy a job. And so they may have a really good business, but they can't sell it. And so we're starting to teach people how to find those business owners and what's the process to go through. In some cases, like a no money down seller financed option so that you can really take advantage of this huge, silver tsunami. This guy's
yeah.
71 years old and didn't have kids to give it to, or his kids don't want it, and, is kind of stuck and wrapped around the axle. But it's exciting, because AI is not going to touch these industries, the ones that we're looking at. They're AI proof at least for another 15 years. I
Yeah.
don't know. I
Which is the
don't think
best you can hope for right now, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I
I
don't think
think
a robot is going to put shingles on your roof anytime
not
soon.
yet. No, it's gonna be
Maybe,
20
but
years.
but it'll
You know
be
what
a
I'm saying?
bit. And so, yeah, man. So that's super exciting. And then some of those are taught, like you said, in kind of webinar or a retreat format. Like, hey, let's take 3 days and really look at what it means to be an investor. What's kind of cool in that is that there are business owners who are like, I don't want to fix my business. I want to buy other businesses. You know what I mean? So it's
Mm,
like everybody wants to could be a buyer.
totally,
And
man.
again, not an operator. So that's a fun, kind of new avenue to walk down. Yeah.
Well, I'll have everybody check you out over at foundersfire.com. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Founders
That's
Fire.
it. That's
But
it.
hey,
That's
man,
over.
thanks for talking today. I'm gonna have you back on, dude. We got to talk more
Oh,
philosophy,
please.
man. We need to do a whole Marcus Aurelius episode.
Oh, I
That's
know
one of my,
you got it on your wall. I got it on my wall.
that's what I'm saying. We got to have a
But
whole because that's the AI I like, ancient intelligence. I heard you say
yeah,
that one
brother.
time.
Come on. Come on.
But I only read things if they're 2,000 years old because I
Come
don't
on.
trust all the crap that's coming out
I
right
know,
now.
man.
So, but it's good
Yeah, we
stuff.
could do a whole one on just stoicism. I'd love to.
Yeah, totally, man. Let's
We
do it,
just
man.
rock it. Yeah, man.
All right, brother. Thanks for being on the show today, man.
All
You're
right,
a
man.
great man, Eric Beck.
Oh, you too, Shane Sams. Appreciate you, buddy.
Man, what a conversation, man. Sometimes you just got to go deep with your boys, right? Because we all know we're all going through this stuff. And I think what hit me most is the idea that growth kind of costs you something. If you want to get unstuck, if you want to get out of that feeling that something's missing, shedding of those things is going to cost you something. It might cost you time. It might cost you money. It might cost you a business that you built and you don't want to be in. It might cost you an identity. I heard once that like every cell in your body replaces itself like every 7 years or something like that. Like you're physically not the same person that you were 7 or 8 years ago. So sometimes the identity you built might have been what you thought you wanted and it was a good season, but you got to be willing to kind of let that go, man. If you don't, or if you do, that process It's still going to cost you energy. It's going to cost you parts of yourself that you don't want to let go to because they've served you well to survive and thrive. And, I know there's a lot of guys out there that are listening right now. You look real successful on paper, but you also feel the weight of everything you're carrying, the business that doesn't serve your identity anymore, the family relationships that are not quite on the same page, the freaking expectations of all these scripts that everybody else gave you, the influencer you listened to that you followed and modeled, the mentor that told you to do something because it worked for them, and then you did it and you realized, is this all it's it? Kind of like Eric in the musician stuff, like playing at the Lincoln Center in New York City. That's a major thing in the music world. And you get to the end and you're like, that was it. That's what I've been working for this whole time. I remember the first time when I paid off my house, I remember going into the bank and I thought, I was 35 years old, I'm paying off a house. I thought this is the moment everybody tells you you've arrived, right? And they printed me out a receipt that looked like I bought a Mountain Dew at a gas station. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm glad I figured this out at 35 instead of 65," right? Because sometimes, the truth that we don't talk about is all this stuff happens and men think they have to do it alone. But the truth is, you don't have to carry it alone. That's why I created this podcast, so we could have conversations like this. Other great men. Eric Beck is a great man. All the guests on this show, I only invite people onto the show when I know them deeply, and I really consider them a great man, a man who's growing, a man who's changing, a man who's fearlessly shedding identities and building new ones. And that's why I created the Great Men Project over at greatmen.org. It's a place for men who are building, who are leading, who are evolving, sometimes wrestling with who they are becoming. It's a place to have real conversations like this. I mean, if you're having an identity crisis, come talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want any victimhood. Don't complain about it. But you need a place where you can have that conversation, where you can practice self-mastery. You can really look at your responsibilities. You can really choose your purpose. And you can build a life of greatness, but on your terms, whatever season of life that you're in. I'm kind of over hustle culture. I have no room for ego in my life anymore, whether it's from me or from other people. And one thing that I have decided not to do anymore is pretend everything's fine when it's not. Every day is full of challenges. Every day is full of victories. And sometimes you just need a place to go out and say it out loud and somebody say, "Yo, dude, me too. I see you," right? Just honest men, good men, building greatness on their terms, working together. So if this conversation resonated with you, if you're looking for a place like that, head over to greatmen.org and check it out. We've got a free tier of the Great Men Brotherhood. That is our online community. We've got some live retreats that are coming up later this year. You can check those out as well. And we'll all get in there and we'll explore greatness and we'll define greatness for our life on our own terms together. Thank y'all so much for listening to the Great Men Podcast. I'll see you next time. Shane Sams out.